Welcome to the Business of Drinks, where we go behind the bottle, interviewing beverage innovators and icons about how they built their businesses.
We take a data-driven approach, analyzing the brands, products, and categories that get customers and consumers excited.
And we cover several drinks categories, from wine, beer, and spirits to non-alcoholic drinks, as well as THC, adaptogen, and functional beverages.
So whether you're working in drinks or just interested in the stories behind your favorite brands, join us each week as we explore how companies are unlocking growth at every stage in the game.
Thanks for joining us, and let's dive in. Hello, BOD crew. So today we've got a really exciting episode, and I'm joined by contributor Caroline Lamb, who's been following this story, and she's going to tell us about today's guest.
Hi, Erica and BOD crew. Today's episode is all about leaning into what you don't know, embracing bold originality, and effectively bringing new customers into a category that is oftentimes overly traditional and exclusive, the wine industry. So today I'm diving into the story of Whiny Baby, the wine brand that's challenging the old rules of wine culture. I talked with Jess Druey, the founder of Whiny Baby, who shares her journey of building a brand that's unapologetically bold and laser focused on connecting with a new generation of wine drinkers.
Yeah, something that really struck me in listening to this conversation was that her focus is on building a truly inclusive wine brand. So, we hear her talk about wanting people in Ohio to have access to these wines and the same type of wines that she's enjoying at like a trendy spot in Santa Monica. And the clear bottles, the colorful crown caps, the stickers, all of these sort of fun elements that she's brought to the wine drinking experience, I think for the first time, and also to the natural wine movement. This just isn't the type of packaging that you see really in any other brand.
Yeah, Whiny Baby wants to change who and where people have access to cool new styles of wine. Jess knows that drinkers are not walking into curated bottle shops. They are in Target. They're in Total Wine. So she knew when she created this brand, she had to be on the most accessible wine shelves in the country. And she's done that. She's in Target. She's in Total Wine. She's in Bevmo. So to me, Jess is proof that you don't need to follow the old rules of wine to succeed. She sold out her first batch of wine based off of a few viral TikToks. And then after a rebrand, after she joined with the McBride sisters, she's now at 6,000 cases in production in 2024. And that number is set to double in 2025. So to me, she's created a brand that's very original. It is very authentic, although it has that vibrant aesthetic that is meant to speak directly to Gen Z and the hipper millennial consumers. She has the playful bottle beads on her bottles, which remind me a lot of the friendship bracelets that have become so popular with the Taylor Swift Eras Tour this year. And these peel off back labels that you can write where you were, who you were with, and it's a keepsake. So really creating memories and creating a celebration of being together and including everyone.
Yeah, I love that. And I do think that it's even more than clever marketing. So one thing that I noticed in your conversation is, how much Jess is connecting with her consumers. She's really out there online. She is building a community through social media. And an interesting point is that for a brand that went viral and caused so much commotion in the wine industry for being quote unquote unserious, I think this is a episode that a lot of founders will resonate with. She talks about her naivety being one of her superpowers in bringing this brand to fruition, because if she had known how difficult it would have been, she probably would have gone in an entirely different direction. So there's just a lot of kind of candid discussion about what went right, but also what went wrong.
Absolutely. And that was something that struck me about Jess is she has no problem embracing what she doesn't know And that is leading her to be very connected with her consumers. She created this out of her own need, and that's what is so authentic about it. I think the word authenticity is a little bit overused, but she knows her consumer because she is her consumer. And the way that she connects with people through her social media, but also through rethinking really traditional things like in-store tastings, reimagining what those look like into more experience-based marketing, which we know works better for Gen Z. It is helping her form really genuine connections and stand out in a very crowded market. So that was interesting to hear about. And she got really candid about her partnership with the McBride sisters, which she describes as a dream partnership. She shared a lot of lessons of growth, but a lot of lessons of learning, because she admits she didn't know a lot getting into the industry. She shares the lessons she's learned about growth, community, and staying hungry for success. She also gives us an exclusive scoop about which chains she is expanding into later this year.
Ooh, exciting. Yeah, I mean, that joint venture with the McBride sisters is so key here. That really helped and was like a kind of new way of thinking, how do I partner with a brand that can really get me onto store shelves in a much quicker fashion? So I think there's some interesting lessons there. And, whether you're an entrepreneur looking for inspiration or a wine lover who's just curious about what's next in the industry, this episode has a lot in there that everyone will be able to appreciate, I think.
I completely agree. So stick around as I sit down with Jess Druey, the founder of Whiny Baby, to talk originality, inclusivity, and the power of community as she creates a wine brand for a new generation. Let's dive in.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Is your drinks brand looking to start or expand import and distribution?
Whether you're seeking to enter new markets or you're unhappy with a current distributor and desiring a better fit, you should know about Swig Partners.
Founded by industry experts Eric Siegelbaum and Amy Troutmiller, Swig takes the guesswork and the legwork out of distribution strategy. Swig helps brands and distributors find the right fit for long-term relationships and sales success.
US-based importers and distributors should reach out too. With Swig, they can explore new products for free. And brands, you can get $100 off by mentioning Business of Drinks. Find out more at swigpartners.com/business of drinks. That's swigpartners.com/business of drinks.
Jess, thank you for coming on the Business of Drinks.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me.
We are so happy to have you, and I'm happy to have you as my first interview. So jumping right in, Whiny Baby is such a vibe. Can you tell the listeners the story behind the name, and can you pinpoint a moment where you knew this is it?
I definitely can. So I was 22 years old living in LA. It was the start of the pandemic, or really like right when all restaurants were closed. I was working at Red Bull at the time, and we switched to being fully remote. And for the first time, I was like, I have a spare moment. I'm going to, start dating. And I had a date lined up with a guy I met on a dating app. And because the restaurants were closed, he was like, hey, why don't you come over? I'll cook for you and you bring a bottle of wine. What should have been a super simple ask, turned into me being like, oh my gosh, I want to impress this guy. I know nothing about wine. And it was the first time that I really realized I had never really thought much about wine, despite growing up in Bakersfield, California, which is a super, agricultural town. And I'm definitely around a lot of, California is the mecca of US wine. So despite that, though, I didn't really grow up with parents who drank much. And so because of that, my relationship to wine and knowledge of wine up to that point really was my girlfriend's having a bottle of rosé while watching like The Bachelor or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember 2 or 3 times being on like a date or at a work event where at the restaurant, they pull out the wine list and I'm like, this is so intimidating. And I would just kind of go like, I'll have what they're having. And in realizing that and going to multiple, grocery stores that day to pick out a bottle of wine for this date, I remember looking at the store shelves and being like, if I'm having this experience, there must be so many others who are looking, going, I don't know what a varietal is. Why do all these brands look the same? And there's really nothing speaking to me in wine. So it was really in that moment that I went, I want to start a wine brand. And the name, it's so funny. That's like the first thing people ask. And it's truly like the first thing that came to me. One thing about me, I am like, if I have an idea, I will snatch up the name, the Instagram, the website. And I just knew walking out, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I was like, I'm going to start a wine brand. It's going to be called Whiny Baby. And I went and I snatched it up. But it's funny because the name, I think, one, really embodies just me as the founder. And, I'm over the top and, not afraid to express myself. But I think it really represents Gen Z who, I'm a member of Gen Z or a Zillennial or, however you want to call that. Our brand certainly isn't just for, Gen Zers, but our target consumer is those who are new to wine. And that often tends to be people who, are just now turning 21 and entering into the market. And I think that the name itself embodies the fact that Gen Z isn't afraid to express themselves, but also, Whiny Baby, it's really for people who are babies and new on their wine drinking journey and, are going to grow up over time and, hopefully have a lifetime love of wine, and Whiny Baby is their starting point on that, hopefully.
I love that. And your comment about the brand being such a clear reflection of you, I stalked your Instagram down to the origin, and it seems like the bright sticker style aesthetic has long been your thing. And if there's one thing that what I read in the media about Whiny Baby that really drives people crazy is your packaging. So I think it's just so fascinating because there's like a few reactions. Either it's so cringe, she must be trolling, or even like other brands starting to copycat it because they see the success you're having with it. So I want our listeners to know that, okay, today we're talking with two 27-year-old women. When I see this brand, it speaks to me. It's nostalgic. Like I used to have a sticker collection.
I watched the Lisa Frank documentary last night. And I forgot how much I was obsessed with Lisa Frank. Maybe there's a little bit of that like stuck with me. I didn't even realize it, but it is definitely, it's very true to me. I think that it's a fine line as a founder, right? To have your brand be reflective of you, but at the same time, just because that's my taste and my style doesn't mean that's everyone's. So be totally transparent, I think a lot about the evolution of Whiny Baby and if I will adapt it. And a brand obviously isn't it's meant to be timeless and to stand the test of time. But at the same time, I think that we are in a very interesting time period and generation where trends come and go so fast, and how you can create a brand that is appealing in the moment, also timeless. The whole millennial minimalistic style totally doesn't speak to me, So I think a lot about, how and if Whiny Baby will adapt in its branding over time.
Absolutely. So walk us through the early days then. What were the first steps that you took to take that idea that you had, the light bulb, and turn it into a bottle of wine that had Whiny Baby on it?
Oh my goodness. So if there's one thing I could tell people, if whether they're wanting to start a drink brand or if they're just a founder entrepreneur of any kind, your naivety is your greatest asset. If I knew what I knew now, I probably would not enter into, this crazy journey that I'm on, because the more the more you're bogged down with. At the time, I was just like, I want to do this and I know nothing about this industry or the complications or, the capital that is required, the legalities of it. And so because I didn't know all that, I just dove head first. And I think that I still to this day try to challenge myself. You and I were talking about how easy it is to become jaded. I never want to become jaded because this industry really can bog you down. And I always want to keep a little bit of that naivety, because I always say, because I didn't know, and because I still don't know how a lot of things are supposed to be done in the wine industry, I've been able to reimagine how they could be done. And so that day I went home, I literally Googled how to start a wine brand. Not so shockingly, there was not a lot of resources out there. And very long story short, it was really over 2 years. I think everybody has ideas. Very few people actually act on them. And so there was a good year where I really didn't do much with it. If I was ever bored, I kind of would be like, that passion I had, I had kind of a major life event where a family member passed. And that was kind of the push that made me sit down, with my family and say, I really want to do this. And I'm super transparent about, my finances, because I think that in this age of TikTok and, this CPG generation we're in, I think that there's a lot of, you look at people and you're like, how did they do that? And, transparently, I was fortunate enough that, my college was paid for, by my family. When I dropped out, I dropped out 2 years into college, and I had said, I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to do all this stuff. And can I have that money for these ambitions? And they thankfully said no many, many times. And I sat them down like I was pitching to investors, and I presented them Whiny Baby and a business plan. And they gave me, it was not a lot. It was a small chunk, but it was enough to create what I like to call the proof of concept. And I did that by obtaining a Type 85 license, which allows you to ship direct to consumer in California only. I figured out how to source bulk wine. I launched with a cab and a shard, which just shows that I had no clue what I was doing. That is so not what Gen Z drinks. But I literally Googled the top wine, and those to this day are the top, sellers. There's so much. And it's like, I look back and I cringe, and there were so many flaws in my first round, and I made so many mistakes, but I proved my point. And I think that we get in our own way too many times. And if I had known all the mistakes I was making, I probably would have been too embarrassed to just do it. And I'm so happy that I did just do it. So I self-launched this kind of proof of concept, as I like to call it, went viral on TikTok, sold out of that original batch, and sold just direct to consumer in California. And was, there was nothing that I didn't do myself. It was me and my mom in her living room, packaging them up, shipping them out. You have to obviously store the wine in a place that legally you're allowed to. And I, drive up, fill up with my orders, and drive home. And did it all. And then I kind of realized, okay, I have something here, and how am I going to turn that page and scale and really take this to the next level?
Yeah, I love the naivety as an asset. I think that is such a central theme to the brand. So you officially launched in 2020, and with the 2 SKUs. You sold those out. Did you go right into the 3 SKUs you have now, or what did that look like? Can you talk me through the range that we see on the shelves today?
Yes. So it was quite a jump and a transformation from those 2 initial launch wines to the Whiny Baby that you see now. So I kind of realized, at that time when I first launched, I still worked at Red Bull. Like, I had a small amount of money that I could create kind of a proof of concept, but by no means was I knew I wasn't going to make any money off of this. I was proving a concept, and then I needed to take it to the next level. And so I kind of poked around. I seriously reached out to anyone in the industry that would talk to me. And it's funny because at that time, I didn't even understand what a distributor was. So I didn't know that you couldn't just sell to Target. And so now we are in Target, and I had to say to the Target buyers, you probably have a LinkedIn DM from me from a couple years ago, because I literally did not know that you first need to, be with a distributor partner. That was literally illegal to sell directly to a store. And so there's so many little things like that, but thankfully people have found that naivety endearing, and it's honest. And, I could go, wow, this is really awkward and embarrassing. Or I could go, no, it's part of my story. I was a hustler and trying to figure it out. And so in talking to the people that would talk to me, genuinely, just like people in the industry that would give me advice, it was like, you can either bootstrap, sell, grow. But I knew that would take me years to get on a store shelf, and that the demand for this was now. The next kind of path was, you could raise a bunch of money, and, who's to say Whiny Baby won't, do that one day? We don't know the future. And I'm not saying that there's, that's not, obviously a viable path. For me personally, in the research I did, I just knew I could raise all this money and I wouldn't know how to properly use it. I didn't have the infrastructure, or really the thing about me is I value my naivety in certain ways, but I'm also not naive enough to know, there's a time and a place when you need to get people that are much smarter than you in the room and to help you along. So I had no interest in raising millions of dollars and blowing it and not, knowing how to properly use it. So I kind of made up in my head this idea of, well, there's all these wineries, there's all these big wine brands out there who have the infrastructure, have the resources, have the knowledge and the mentorship that I need. And I have what they need, which is this younger consumer and the innovation. And thankfully, I kind of created this ideal partnership. I had been amidst my time of talking to anybody that would talk to me. And I knew of the McBride sisters. I knew of their story. We're very aligned in, their slogan is, break the rules, drink the wine, which is very Whiny Baby. What they represent and what they've accomplished as women of color, just completely resonated with me. And I think there's a big thing in being a founder of, if you do choose to partner with larger brands, those brands may want to come in and make changes that you don't align with. So finding the McBride sisters, who I knew understood and aligned with me, was really important. Skipping a few steps, how I landed my partnership with them. So I, am trying to reach out to anyone that will take my calls. In my head, I kind of was like, I know this is what I want. I don't know if anyone would do it. And so I started reaching out to these larger companies, and in talking to people, this gentleman said, oh, you remind me of these two sisters I worked with one time. And thank goodness we glossed over that. And at the end of the call, something in me was like, you should ask him who he's talking about. And he said the McBride sisters. I was like, I know them. I heard their story on the podcast, how I built this. I listened to that podcast like 3 or 4 times. I researched them. I knew them through and through. And I said, do you think you could get me in contact with them? He did get me in contact with one of their assistants, tried to get a meeting with them, eventually landed the meeting. By no means did they think in this meeting I was going to say, I want to have a partnership with you. They thought they were just, giving me advice. I've watched them. They set time in their calendars to speak to, people in the industry who want advice. And they thought that that's what that was. And like 10 minutes left, I'm like, okay, I know this is crazy, but this is what I want. I don't know if you're, you as a company are in a place that you would do this. It's like, kind of like dating in a way. You don't want to be like too forward.
But you also have to put yourself out there.
Exactly. Thank goodness I was forward. And over the next, I would say, I think it was like 8 months. We went back and forth. I left my job at Red Bull. I entered into my partnership with them. And that is how we have the new wines that you see today, which the development of that is a whole other story.
Okay.
That at least gets us to how I went from, just being myself, creating this proof of concept, to, becoming a real, company and brand that you see on store shelves today.
Absolutely. Wow. So you don't include the grape varietal names on the wine bottles. So knowing that the McBride sisters were a part of this, I should ask, did you have the varietal names on the Cab and Chard, the OG Whiny Baby?
We did, but they were super small. Like,
okay,
It's always been, I've always known that the varietals, I wanted to de-emphasize the varietals because I know for me, that wasn't, I didn't even know what a varietal was. And I think a lot of people don't. So I knew that that wasn't a major factor then, at least in my buying decision making. So after I entered into the partnership with the sisters, it was the first time that I got to actually create my wine. You know, that first time I just bought bulk wine and, went from there. This time I was working with the McBride sisters winemaking team. I was part of the winemaking team. I got to sit with them. I got to ask my Instagram community what they were looking for. And in that moment, I went, okay, we just need a starting point for wine, which for me is in blends. And it's, a red blend, a white blend, a rosé blend. We're removing the complication of varietals. We don't have them, currently on the bottles, but we're by no means, if you go onto our social media, we share what the varietals are. There's no secrecy involved. In fact, I would love for people as they get more curious to go, oh, I really like the red and that's predominantly Zinfandel and Merlot. Okay. You know that you like that cherry, really ripe cherry flavor that you're picking up probably from the Zinfandel. They know now if they are going to get like a varietal, maybe they'll grab a Zinfandel. And
Absolutely.
to be totally transparent, I'm kind of jumping forward into the kind of the new chapter of Whiny Baby, which will probably be more about educating consumers. But I knew at least for the starting point, I wanted to create the 3 go-to starter pack for wine, where if someone's walking in a grocery store, they're like, oh, I want to, dip my toes into the world of wine. They know that this is a great starting point. And I think my biggest difficulty today is getting people to realize that this is quality wine, that of course they are, a little bit on the sweeter side and more fruit forward, just because typically people who are new to wine, that is what they're going to be more comfortable with. But they are not sugar bombs. They are not, this is quality, beautiful wine. It's well balanced. You get that juicy acidity on the end, and it really is just approachable and delicious. And so I think the biggest misconception is people see fun labels and they associate that with not high quality wine. And that's a huge misconception that I think the industry needs to overcome.
Absolutely. I agree. I think you're towing the line between taking the wine, the quality seriously enough while not taking the wine too seriously,
Exactly.
which is exactly what you need. So you're talking about new buyers walking in a store. So right now you're in major retailers like Target, Bevmo, and Total Wine. What was the strategy behind this path to market? I'm wondering, was it driven by a national alignment with a particular distributor, or what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah. So it's so funny talking to other alcoholic beverage founders. I always feel like so spoiled because of my setup, but then I remind myself that I created that setup.
You
so
did.
work smarter, not harder. But in my partnership with the sisters, I was able to enter into distribution agreements with their existing kind of footprint, and they already had a national footprint. Go to market, we started last year in only 4 states: California, Florida, Washington, Arizona. And then, as you know, we've expanded this year into about 27 total, which is super exciting. But so I was fortunate enough that overcoming those hurdles of getting a distribution partner, getting their attention, working with them, that's really the beauty of my partnership. I have this larger company that kind of guides me through those paths. In terms of the stores that we're in now, you have to sit down, I think, as a founder. And I think our age group it's really difficult because we're in this social media era, this like CPG, direct to consumer, like there's a lot of clout right now in the packaged goods space. It's funny, right?
In the CPG founder space, it's like a whole influencer community.
It totally is. And when I was living in LA, I think that I just realized, I think LA and New York can often be these bubbles. I think that our online communities can be these bubbles. And when I entered into the partnership and knew that I was, scaling my product, I knew that I wanted to make it accessible to everyone. I wanted to hit middle America. I wanted them to enjoy the style of wines that I was enjoying at my local trendy wine bar in Santa Monica. And I mean, the bottle caps, if you go into a major grocer, you will not find a wine with that style of bottle cap. But if you go into these, boutique wine shops, you will find that. And so it's interesting. I didn't even realize it till recently. I think that I'm bridging two gaps. I think I'm bridging the traditional wine world gap between new consumers, but then I also think I'm bridging the natural, quote unquote, wine world with traditional wine. Because to be totally honest, Whiny Baby kind of doesn't fit in either. We are made in a way that we're able to scale nationally. A lot of these smaller, more boutique producers that I love and that I, respect and want to learn so much from. I have a lot to learn in wine, which is so fun because I get to take everyone with me. But a lot of times they can't be produced at scale, in a way that the rest of the country can enjoy it. And so I'm constantly trying to find this middle ground of creating these styles of wines that I know, my community loves to enjoy and making it accessible across the country. And I actually had a conversation about our go-to-market strategy before we even launched. And they had said, oh, do we want to just target the coast? Do we want to, and I was like, no, I want to be in Ohio and I want to be in I want this kind of wine available across the nation.
And that is important. I live in Michigan and it feels like it's not, doesn't feel like it is, so many people do focus just on the coasts. When there's plenty of, interesting people, people who are interested in everything everywhere. And it's funny when I have people come visit or work the market with me and they've never been to Michigan. They're so blown away. Like you said, everyone's in their bubbles. They're blown away that there are people who are just like them.
Exactly. And it's so funny in this kind of Instagram founder world, I kind of realized I was like, I don't really care about the clout. I would love for Whiny Baby to be a part of any and all cool events, but I'm more interested in Whiny Baby being, the first wine that someone in Michigan goes and grabs and has a girls' night of versus Whiny Baby being a part of some LA clout event, if that makes sense. So I getting really clear on who your consumer is, and knowing how your product needs to adjust and the sacrifices you're willing to make. I mean, price point obviously is a huge, topic and something that I'm actually always working on and re-examining and trying to understand, okay, what, a 23-year-old in California is willing to spend. Is that different than a different state? And these are topics that I am always trying to learn and improve on. And I look forward to Whiny Baby adapting over time as well.
Let's talk about your pricing. So to my understanding, it's $17.99 on the shelf. I want to know why you chose that price. And then presumably your wines maybe have different profit margins. So curious about the choice behind line pricing all the styles.
Yeah. So again, I have gotten so spoiled in so many ways in my choice of doing this partnership. Granted, I had to give up a large portion of my company, to accomplish that. So everything has, give and take, right? For me, that was the best decision possible ever. And in that is rather than operating at a level of being so small like I was able to operate with resources of a little bit of a larger company. And so with that is you get a little bit more flexibility in price point because of the scale at which you are producing, right? And so wanted for sure them to be all the same. Again, it's a starter pack. I viewed them as, this is actually a whole other topic, but I am learning every single day about the world of retail and buying behavior is so different than online, so different. And how stores do their floor plans and do their layouts, right? I had no idea that stores wouldn't just put all three next to each other. They put them, in their where their different like main varietals are, or, you know, the red blends, or there are some that will place them in like sweet wine or emerging brands. That's kind of a newer one that's been cool. But in my brain, I was like, oh, they're just going to put them all together and people will know to grab. Doesn't work like that.
It'll be so impactful. All three sitting right there.
And so that's actually such an interesting thing that, like, again, I'm still growing and learning as we go. When I was developing this, I didn't even think about the fact that they wouldn't be placed together. So that concept of it being the starter pack completely gets lost if you're not seeing them all together. So that's been an interesting, you know, thing of navigating. Back to price point, I think it's so funny. Like, the world we live in is so it's our bubble and our world. And so when I did my proof of concept, I don't even remember. I should remember. I think when I did, before I had my partnership, I think that they were like $35 a bottle online. I was just like,
oh my God.
Oh, that's great. I have no idea. Yeah. And I, you know, I didn't know, I should know this off the top of my head, but like, what is it? Most of the wine purchased in the US is like under $8 a bottle. I think that's what it is. There's some statistic like that, right?
Yeah.
I do that and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't think any of my friends would grab a bottle under $8 because they would assume something about the quality or, you know. And so in developing, you know, the right price point for us, again, I think it's always developing, but I wanted it to be this perfect middle ground of appropriate, that you could bring it as a hostess gift, you know, something, you know, nice and significant, but also approachable and accessible enough that it could be reasonable for someone to grab that on their weekly grocery run and, you know, enjoy a bottle, you know, throughout the week, every couple of days, or, you know, whatever. So it's price point is tough, and finding, you know, the middle ground. And then also, you know, we do get a lot of purchases from online. And then how does that, you know, differ from someone purchasing in a grocery store? So
yeah, you got to find the sweet spot, no pun intended.
exactly.
So I want to backtrack to the original launch, and you mentioned going viral on TikTok. So social media has obviously played a huge role in your growth.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, I started posting on TikTok and kind of, you know, gained a little bit of a following. At the time, I hadn't launched Whiny Baby, but another thing I think another reason that went into me kind of realizing, oh, wait, maybe I am like an entrepreneur. I remember going like, I could commit all this time to like growing this following, but I would rather like create a product and have like the following dedicated to that product, which was kind of a conscious, you know, shift I had made. TikTok is interesting because they do still regulate alcohol. So at the time, I didn't really know that, but I posted only like 2 or 3 videos, and they were super simple. They were just like me realizing like some, you know, trending music or whatever, and saying like, you know, me realizing that the wine industry was super old and outdated. And then it like popped up my bottles and was like, so I started my own wine brand, you know, or Genz focused wine brand. And all of them did really well, but then my videos started not doing well because literally when TikTok realizes you're posting, content about alcohol, it will like suppress your views. So it's like I almost like snuck in. I obviously wanted to go viral, but you never know. And I was fortunate that I had kind of already built that TikTok following, and so those videos did really well right off the bat.
Okay, so when you say built that TikTok following, ballpark, what were your followers? Out of curiosity,
80K.
Okay,
then yeah, so. Not crazy, but I mean, I was like, if 80,000 people buy my wine, that would be great.
I'm looking good.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. So you recently were not only on Gordon Ramsay's Food Stars, but won the show. So congratulations, first of all. And I want to know, first of all, your motivation behind going on reality TV.
Yep.
And how winning the competition impacted you as a founder, Whiny Baby as a brand, and what you did with that nice prize money.
I mean, this year has been so crazy. So I left to film in February, and then I got back in April, and we filmed in London.
Oh my.
And during that time, you had limited computer and phone use. Again, one of the wonderful benefits of my partnership. I don't think I would have been able to keep, running my company with limited uh, phone and computer access. And a little bit of so then we got back and the show started airing in May, which is super rare. Normally you have to wait like a year.
Oh wow.
So it started airing in May and then it was over in July. So honestly, I feel like these past couple months I've just been like getting back to normal life. I got reached out to actually each of our bottles, I have it right here. Each of our bottles have like a phone number on them that people, our consumers can actually interact with. Super funny. We get like voicemails all the time while people are drinking them because our voicemails like, leave us a voicemail, like, call us, don't call your ex. And we get really funny stuff. But we ended up getting a phone call and a voicemail that said, hi, I'm a casting producer for Gordon Ramsay. We're doing this show. We'd love for you to be on it. Went through the whole process and I told my partners, I was like, I don't want to go on reality TV. Like, it's just too much putting yourself out there. It'd be one thing if it was me putting myself out there, but putting my business out there for the nation to like pick apart, is so scary and just too much. And they were like, you absolutely are going to. And I mean, what Reddit really did could be summed up as this. One, I'm really proud of the win because I feel like it's a win for the wine industry, which we need right now.
Fantastic. Couldn't agree more.
Right. So I'm like, okay, yes, like a young, woman in wine, Gen Z wine, like we needed this win. And I think it did bring some visibility to like wine, which I'm always for. And secondly, you talk about the brand scaling and entering into new states. It was the perfect timing for bringing awareness to a whole new audience of people that I could have never accessed just through social media alone. Traditional television, and it has, a little bit of an older demographic as well. So it's just been really impactful, mostly for awareness. And then a little bit of hot off the press gossip. I actually met my boyfriend on the show.
Ooh,
So if you're
la.
Oh, I'm dating the hot sauce founder.
Okay.
So you'll have to watch out for that. And we're actually leaving on Monday to go back to London for the holidays. So super fun there. But he's based in Sonoma, and I obviously go up there a bunch for work. And so, kind of fun how worlds collide.
A competitive romance.
A competitive romance, exactly.
And maybe we'll see a Whiny Baby and hot sauce collaboration.
You hopefully will. Exactly. It's funny. If you watch the show, there was one episode that was like the wine challenge. And I was like, oh my gosh, if my team loses this challenge, like my career is
so
ruined.
Embarrassing.
Thankfully we won. But on that episode, he was on the opposite team and they like ripped off Whiny Baby. Like they did like the peel and stick back label and like whatever. And that was like kind of the whole narrative of that episode was like him ripping off Whiny Baby. So now whenever we're out and about, people are like, you guys are friends? Like, I thought you would hate him, he stole your idea. And I'm like, no. He gave a whole episode, like made it dedicated to Whiny Baby. That was the best thing ever.
Yeah, he actually knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
Did you have concerns that going on, the producers might cast you as like the villain or something?
Of course. That's like always the concern. I think I was just really authentically myself. And I think that I'm always, I worked at Red Bull before. I've had like experience in corporate America. And so I think that I've kind of developed over time a good balance of being authentic, but also, being professional and knowing how to kind of combat those things. So fortunately, I was definitely not the the villain. And, anytime you do anything, like that's the biggest thing. If you're someone who wants to do something, create something, start a business, be on a show, post on TikTok, you will get criticized. Like anytime you do anything, you will get criticized. So once you accept that, you're just kind of like, whatever. So thankfully though, it was not bad at all. And people were so kind and it was wonderful for the brand. So,
and if I'm not mistaken, is that what launched you to enter more states this year or in 2024?
Yes, exactly. So we were able to, again, like so much of this industry is timing and planning and relationships. And we were able to expand with Total Wine in alignment. And like, I mean, you work in beverage, like it's one thing to like get the commitment that you're going to, launch in a store. Then you have to get that product right to your distributor in all those states. Then in all those states they put it on the shelf. And one of the hardest things is being able to communicate to your community when and how to get your product, because sometimes I'm just trying to figure out if it's landed on the shelf yet.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud and thankful of all the partners and team members that were able to get Whiny Baby on more state shelves as the show was airing and more people, across the nation were learning about the brand.
That's, yeah, working at the distributor tier, I love hearing from you and being reminded there is somebody sitting somewhere just hoping that I'm getting their wine to the store.
That's why so much of this industry is relationships. I mean, you're worrying about how many different brands and, you deciding to dedicate time and energy. Sometimes just being able to talk to the founder and owner of a brand, getting to realize, oh, there's a person behind this who is like, this is their life, creating those connections and those relationships. And fortunately, I have found so much joy, but also so much success in getting to meet with our different distributor partners and talk with them and develop actual relationships with them and get them, Whiny Baby merch. And, it's the little things that get people more involved and more passionate about your brand as well.
Yeah. You would be surprised how far a gesture like that goes and for the long haul, really. So going into more states, how did you plan to cover and support this nearly 7 times the size geographic footprint? I know you have the partnership, so I think it's sounding like that took a lot of the responsibility off your personal plate, but that's still a huge expansion.
Yeah. To be totally transparent, we didn't have a ton of time to really, really prep. I mean, we didn't know I was going to win the show. We didn't know till April that I had won. So starting in April, from April to July, it was just securing the commitment to get it on those store shelves and then all the work of actually getting it there. And then to be totally honest, I don't think it was till maybe September that I had confirmation that it was actually there on all of those store shelves. So it's like September to now is the first time that it's like really there.
Okay.
And so I'm still, I think kicking off, we were able to really quick get samplings in those stores. I wasn't able to attend all those samplings. We have done amazing. Like, I'm so thankful for our online community of, we were able to do some samplings last year, and the ones that I was able to attend myself and really build out and make like a real experience, not just like a sampling that you would normally see. Like, we really put work in to make it feel like, oh, you have nothing to do on this Thursday night. Grab your friends and like go into that Total Wine or that Bevmo and come try Whiny Baby, but we'll make it an experience for you. We were able to do that and found a lot of success. And so we were able to execute some of those samplings through the end of the year. But going into 2025 and how we're, really going to emphasize on this way that we've scaled is we've been able to put together some classroom experiences and really take the samplings to the next level and make them ticketed events where people go and sit down and have a real Whiny Baby like experience. And so we are currently working on building out that programming with some of these retail partners. And then hot off the press, I don't know if I'm allowed to share.
We're really getting dished today.
You really are. This year we are entering into Meijer. So my Midwest girlies.
Oh, I'm excited.
And here's the most exciting part. Meijer is going to be the first retailer. So if it actually breaks my heart because so many people go to the store hoping to have the bottle beads, but they're currently only available for orders at whinybaby.com. So if you order a bottle from whinybaby.com, they all come with the bottle beads, which was one of my OG things. Like,
yeah.
Which we've been able to keep. It's more like just sentimental at this point. But people love them. And then they go into the stores and they're not there. And I get so many emails that are like, oh, like,
Yeah.
So Meijer is the first retailer that is going to have the beads on the bottles in the store.
That's
which is like
fantastic news.
I
What's
know.
the reason
So-
why the beads couldn't be in the other stores, or why are they in Meijer?
So they're not like shelf safe. You could just kind of pull them off. And unfortunately, as we know, people, do annoying things like that.
Yeah.
And so we haven't found a full long-term solution. Again, you're getting like so much tea. I think in the future, I'll probably develop caps that have it like where it's like actually secure,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But for the time being, we're working with our distributor partners, and they're actually going to secure the top on with some stickers that we've designed. So it's actually just going to be even more fun, more stickers on the bottle, and they'll be securing the beads down. But I mean, that's just such a cool example of like, that's something that's been true to us. The Meijer buyer was really passionate about the beads and being able to offer them. And so now the Midwest gets this, first to market exclusive.
That feels very exclusive. And I'm very excited. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. We're already in Total Wine where I am, but having more options is better than having less options. We all know that.
Yes.
Touching on your comment on how much you've scaled, can you share with us a quick overview of either since 2020 or even just in the past year, that percentage growth, or what's your case volume? What are you comfortable sharing with us?
Yeah. So we hit store shelves like really September of 2023. So September 2024 will be about a year truly on store shelves. And so we're going to be closing out the end of this year at about 6,000 cases. And then, we plan to really at least double that next year. I talked about a little bit of the expansion, but we're entering into Meijer. We're entering into Cost Plus, TBD, which stores. But we are entering into California Whole Foods. So we've got some major expansion going into 2025. And I'm still finding out. It's crazy how far in advance these processes work, right?
Mm-hmm.
We pitch to these retailers and work with our distributors and to, get in all these new places. And then it's like months of waiting. And then just now is kind of the time when we really start hearing back. So it's kind of the fruits of your labor, like waking up and being like, oh, we got it. We got placement here. So I'm really, really optimistic and excited going into 2025. But to your point that we're talking about earlier, I think the biggest misconception is people hear, oh my gosh, you're going into Target and Bevmo. And it's like, wow, that's success. To me, that's a huge accomplishment, but that's not success. Success is velocity and turning and people going in and not only buying your product once, continuing to buy it. So honestly, right now is when I'm in the phase of determining real success. And with every retailer and new placement and new state we get, it's more of a commitment financially, myself, my team members, our community, to grow and build awareness and get people to try it and keep buying it.
So it sounds like with the expansion, Whole Foods in California, that alone I feel like would be a huge increase to your production. Because of your partnership, you feel that it's pretty easy to turn on the tap and production is there.
Definitely more so if I was solo. So yes, thankfully, again, I feel so spoiled in that I have this access to resources and mentorship and people who know how to work with me and go, okay, we know we're going into X amount more stores. That means we're going to need to produce this much more. We're going to need to start production on this date, 3 months ahead of time. There's so many complexities that go into it. So to answer your question, yes, super fortunate that we have amazing teams, amazing operation teams at the McBride Sisters Wine Company, amazing winemaking teams that we all, get to work together to plan ahead. And planning ahead is difficult, especially as you want to win more accounts, but you need to have the product to supply that.
Yeah. So you won Meijer. Do you know how much that will take to to fill this coming year or when it goes live?
Yeah. So I think Meyer has like 350 stores. So it's, 350 stores. They are taking only 2 of the SKUs. That's the other thing. We've got 3 SKUs, and as much as I would love for every store to take all 3 and put them all, like we talked about at the beginning, that's not really how wine in a store format works today. I
Today.
Thank you. I have future plans to try to transform that, which I'm sure would be working together on. So more to come on if I accomplish that in the next couple of years. But yeah, that being said, you have to do a lot of, working backwards. So we've only done 1 round of production for Whiny Baby, and we're gearing up to do our 2nd round of production at the start of this year.
Okay, great. So as we're wrapping up, I want to know, as a first-time founder, what your biggest fail has been. Not your naivety. It sounds like you really lean into that. I want to know if there was a fail, something that sucked but taught you your most valuable lesson in the past few years.
Amazing question. I also appreciate you saying first time founder, because I do always think that it's just the beginning. And, I think every founder has a million things they want to do and accomplish.
More than probably could ever happen from one brain, but who knows?
For sure. Like you said, I truly don't view anything as, probably to a fault, like as a failure. I am such an eternal optimist. And I think that the only things that come to mind as probably, let's call them the biggest lessons looking back that I would maybe approach differently is, one, you should always, as optimistic as you are and can be, things will go wrong. And always looking to protect yourself as an owner and a founder, protect your business, even in the moment when you think, oh no, that could never happen, So I would say just always, even though it goes against every fiber of my being, preparing for worst case scenarios, because they do happen. And so once you just accept things are going to go wrong, you can, better prepare accordingly. I would say the second one is actually kind of surprising. When I entered into my partnership, I was then working with a company that already had, their teams, working and all systems go. And I think part of me wanted to just, and still does, learn from their setup and do things, how they do them. And in that, I think that for just a short period of time, I stepped back on my, LinkedIn messaging everyone and, that hunger when I was just flying solo, because I kind of had this company who was guiding me now. And, they never told me, step back or anything like that. I think I just kind of was like, okay, that kind of, I wasn't going to DM a buyer necessarily, because they the company that, I'm now partners with have their own buyer relationships. But when I kind of got out of that way of thinking and went, wait, no matter what level you're at, that hunger and scrappiness is really valuable. That was actually one of the reasons that I was able to win a lot of those new accounts. I returned on that hunger and went, it doesn't matter if my partners have relationships with these buyers. Whiny Baby is its own company. I am my own founder, and I need to develop relationships with the distributors and the buyers and, everybody for myself. And when I started reactivating that again, Whiny Baby, started expanding even more. And so I think never losing that kind of hunger, no matter what level you're at.
That's great advice, and leads me exactly to where I want to end, which is, you first heard of the McBride sisters after hearing them on a podcast, or that's how you knew of them. So any words for future founders listening today that might be calling you in 10 years for a partnership?
I would say, I think I already said, like what we don't know is often our strongest asset. I think the second part to that, though, is out professional everyone. You know, I don't say be naive and, you know, and I mean that be unprepared or be, you know what you don't know, but then show how it can be done. You know, take the step further. Every meeting I had an insane deck that had all my ideas fleshed out. You know, anybody can have an idea. Very few people can communicate those ideas. And that's why those ideas never get brought to life. If you can't communicate them to the people that you need to work with, they're just going to exist, you know, in your head. Really being part of your community. I think that sometimes as an owner and a founder, you become removed, right? All the innovation of Whiny Baby came from me spending time actually drinking wine with my friends and with people who are part of the Whiny Baby community. And so never becoming an outer part of your community, always being in it and learning from your consumer, really, I think is what gets
I love
you
it. Stay scrappy, stay optimistic. Thank you for coming
Yes.
on the Business of Drinks, Jess.
Thank you so much for having me.